On today's podcast, we're looking at current events in the Middle East and how the conflict there is skyrocketing the price of consumable goods with our A-Team panel with retired SEAL Team 6 Warrior Don Mann, former Army Ranger Christianson, who's also the current CEO of Nutrient Survival, and our in-house subject matter expert and 23-year master EOD tech, Mike Sterling. And we're back with our A-Team of subject matter experts. Don, let's just jump right in with you.
How you doing, Chris? I know, like all Americans, we're all very, very concerned. I've actually been sitting at the edge of my seat for 14 days now. And the ground invasion will probably happen sometime this morning or sometime soon after. The effects of this are going to affect the entire world. And not only Hamas and the Palestinians, more importantly, the Israelis and the Americans, but everybody over there. It's going to affect them. It's going to affect the rest of the world. It's going to affect us over here, more so than just seeing those horrific photos and videos of all the people being beheaded and killed and all that. It's going to affect everyday people here in the U.S. because prices are just going to continue going up for everybody. We have an open border. Who knows how many terrorist-related people are coming across the border? I know when I was in the military, we had 200 sleeper cells we were following or trying to follow. That's before the border opened wide open like it is now. But yeah, the interest rates going skyrocketing up, ammo, of course, everything is going up and up and up. But if we have two big wars we're in, proxy wars with Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah, and who knows what's going to happen with China, North Korea, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, we have to know that costs for us are going to go up and up and up. There's no let up right now. And as Americans here at home, we have to prepare for those costs. And we have to be prepared to take care of ourselves and our families and have stores here at our homes, meaning food, water, ammo, your weapons, medical supplies. And it's a tragedy all over the world, but bringing it down to the home front, our own homes, we have to be prepared to take care of ourselves for the long run.
That's well said, Don. Eric, Mike, one of you guys want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think Don hit it on the head. We don't know what we don't know, but we do know that we are part of a global economy, and we're also highly dependent on a fossil fuel economy. And I think everything that we do, everything that we rely on for everyday conveniences, our food, our water, and whatever it happens to be, is dependent on a bit of stability in this global economy. And when the price of oil or liquid natural gas takes a spike, takes a run, everything is impacted. So clearly in the future, prices are only going to go one way. We know that. So what can you do to prepare against that is an important thing to think about. But I think the other important idea that Don brought up here, and it's something that probably keeps him at the edge of his seat, as he mentioned, is fighting on multiple fronts. You mentioned two. Well, there's also the China-Taiwan issue. And of course, you've got the Korea thing that's always sitting out there waiting to ignite. And I think, the other piece that we don't recognize beyond just sort of oil and that is what happens when the U.S. has to mobilize a military economy and leave behind a call it consumer economy. I wasn't around when food was being rationed, but I've heard the stories, I've read the stories. And so if we start to have to fight, multiple wars, like a World War II scenario where it's all hands on deck, we need to support our military. We need to make sure that we're able to fight and win this war or wars. Little Johnny getting his popcorn at the theater, that's going to be the last thing we're going to be thinking about, right? So we got to be aware of that piece as well, because we don't know where this is all going to go.
Yeah, good points, Eric. Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. As we all know, oil is the thing that makes the big machine of the world go round. Nothing moves without this, regardless of what everybody wants to say. Oh, we're going to have electric power. Okay, still produced by fossil fuels. If it starts getting a little foolish, yeah, that's a problem. Now, the one upside is we have all the oil that we need and will need for the foreseeable future here in the United States. We have the ability to be 100%, oil oil independent. Will fuel be absolutely unavailable? No. Will world prices go up on it? Yes, because of course we are tied to a global economy. That's just the bottom line. Global economies are global economies. And you can't say, oh, we can untie ourselves from that. Now, there's been a global economy for the operational known world all the way going back to the Roman Empire. Let's just go ahead and get past that. So global economies are really a thing. Fuel will be available. It's just the price is just going to go up. And the problem with that price, just like Eric was talking about, is that price is going to impinge on everything, because you have to move all of these goods either by rail, air, or by truck. It's got to move at one point or another. If you look at, for anybody that's ever been to like Africa or deep dark portions of the third world, there's all kinds of food there. They just can't get it to where it needs to go. I was astounded in East Africa at the amount of food that just rotted right there at the ports because they had no way to move it from the port to the people that needed to eat it. So yeah, food is definitely going to be impacted because, of course, fuel means you harvest the stuff, then you've got to move it from farm to distribution to consumers. So yes, absolutely, fuel is going to be the big thing in this case, I think.
Even with the U.S. being more or less potentially energy independent, and we actually had a period where we were for a spell. And now we've seen strategic reserves depleted, and we didn't replenish those before this little incident in Israel started. So that's added to, I think, the misery. But 40% of the world's oil and natural gas comes from, the OPEC countries. And we all know who's at the heart of the OPEC countries. Saudi, Iraq, Iran, those guys are in cahoots. They're supporting Hezbollah, Hamas, all the other. So if they all get together, and they all snubbed Biden when he went over there. Okay, right. So he goes over and we're not meeting with you. So we know where they're going to align. And yeah, they hate each other. Hezbollah, Hamas hate each other, but they hate Israel more. They hate us more. And so at the end of the day, if it's what can we do to strangle the big Satan? They know that oil is our Achilles heel. So even if we are self-sustaining, that impact is not something that we are going to be able to ignore.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, the prices are still going to go up. Just the availability here in the United States, I think, will remain at a fairly constant.
And what really bothers me about this, one of the many, many things that bother me about all this, is a lot of the problems we have are self-inflicted. The policies, the U.S. policies with this administration especially, it's weakening our country, it's empowering our enemy, and everything we do is hurting us. This woke generation we have, these woke policies, and these policies of funding. How do we fund Iran? I remember when Obama was sending billions to Iran, knowing every time there's an interview with Iran, they're stomping on an American flag saying, "Death to Israel, death to U.S." How does that happen? Why do we cut them sneaking billions of dollars on a plane, and they denied it? I said, "Oh, well, we owed them the money." And then they said they couldn't send it electronically. Well, they send it electronically as well. For some reason, our Democrat Party keeps trying to fund Iran. And now the $100 million is going to Hamas, the Gaza Strip. Yeah, it'd be nice if those people got the money, but Hamas is not going to get that money to the people in need. They're going to use it for weapons and artillery, killing our people. It's our own policies they're self-induced. We wouldn't have all these problems if we had stronger leadership, and leadership that was America first, not our enemies first.
Oh, absolutely. Come on. Weakness invites aggression in anybody's language.
Join the exciting world of ham radio with hamradioprep.com, the premier online site for getting your technician, general, or extra class license fast. With hamradioprep.com, you'll learn from experienced ham radio operators through engaging video lessons, illustrated slides, and daily practice quizzes. Study at your own pace to learn radio theory, regulations, operating techniques, and get fully prepared to pass your FCC exam. Their proven training system guarantees you'll pass the exam or your money back. They have over 50,000 satisfied customers and a 98% first try pass rate. With your new license, a whole new world opens up. You'll gain privileges to operate ham radios and make new contacts around the globe. It's easy to get started. Simply create an account and start prepping. Pass the online exam and you'll be on the air in no time. Don't just listen to your radio, be part of it. Get your license today with hamradioprep.com and join the amateur radio community. The next conversation you have could be out of this world. Eric, I was just going to ask you a quick question. When you were speaking last, have you seen any price increases on the shipping for goods for your company, for Nutrient Survival?
Oh man, Chris, I mean, because we're mostly a direct-to-consumer fulfillment model right now, and we ship off to individual homes as well as Amazon, Walmart, Costco, et cetera, shipping cost is about 10% of my cost of goods. So it's something that we watch really, really closely and try to make as much progress as we can. We had been able to renegotiate some of our rates because our volume has gone up. Being a startup, you're paying high rates because not a lot of volume. But as we've scaled, we've been able to offset some of the price increases. But yeah, we're getting surcharges all the time from FedEx, UPS, even USPS these days is charging extra when we see these little movements up and down. And of course, the inbound stuff kills you as well. So when I get a pallet of eggs or hash brown potatoes or what have you, I'm getting tacked on with increased shipping from that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to diverge away from the deficit of leadership conversation, Don. I just wanted to get Eric's thoughts on that while he was speaking.
It used to be, Don, that those types of, I'll call it vulgarities, where American flags were being desecrated, you used to see that only overseas. And that's the thing, you talk about all the things that are bothering you. That's one of the things that's bothering me. It has become commonplace. It's become in vogue to have these little pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas pep rallies and pretend that it's okay to behead little children and rip out unborn babies from pregnant mothers' wombs. How is that okay? And yesterday, last night, I know this video is going to air a little bit later, but we had Biden on television delivering his little address. And the thing is, trying to conflate Ukraine with the Israel situation. Okay. Hamas is not Russia. Hamas is not Russia. Okay. Hamas are terrorists. Russia is a global superpower. Hamas is flying around in little dune buggies and gliders, jumping in and slaughtering folks. Russia's got nukes. Russia's flying MiGs. Okay. They're flying Su-35s, what have you. To say hey, they're the same and they're both in defense of democracy. No, they are completely different. Let's just stop it. In fact, it's one thing that's just totally disgusting me with the Ukraine situation. I know this is a discussion about Israel, but it's all connected. There's been literally no gain for the past 18 months. 188 square miles. That's the size of New York City. That is what Russia has gained. And it's been up and down, but the fact of the matter is 188 square miles after 18 months. And here we are pumping more money over to Ukraine since day one. I know that this whole thing is a complete sham. This Israel situation should not be a convenient way for us to send more money everywhere. It's not even clear what is the end goal in Ukraine, Russia. I know what the end goal is in Israel. They're going to evacuate Gaza and they're going to flatten it. They're going to turn it into a parking lot. End of story. I know what the end state is there. I still don't know what we're doing supporting Ukraine other than just continue to pump money in there. Yes, I get it, defending against incursion from communist into democracy. But okay, how long is this thing going to last?
Well, I think that the word democracy in Ukraine in the same sentence is an oxymoron. So they might say that they're defending democracy, but there's no democracy in the Ukraine. But I have a question for you guys, circling back to the current conflict in the Middle East. So we're all old enough to remember 1980, the Iran hostage situation. And Jimmy Carter, bless his soul, good human being, not a great statesman. And, within very short order of Reagan getting in office, he basically said what you just said, Eric. He said, give us our people back, or I'm going to turn you all into a parking lot. Have you heard anything, the three of you, have you heard anything with regards to the 20, I think that's a low number, but 20 Americans being held hostage by Hamas?
Well, not a bloody thing.
Just they don't know where they are. They have no clue where they are. And that's not surprising because they've got those 300 miles worth of tunnels where they could be anywhere in those tunnels. But yeah, they're not talking really about the hostages at all, American hostages or any of the hostages.
So I think that kind of speaks to the point that you raised, and Eric as well, that there's no pride in America. You know what I mean? Like we have this deficit at the leadership point. Okay, so we've basically established that all this instability in the Middle East is already having effects on things like oil, and the higher oil prices go, the higher cost for consumers is for consumable goods and whatnot. What can we do? Like, what can Americans do in light of all this crap that's unfolding?
Well, what I would say is what we have to do. We can't maybe do it and maybe think about doing it. And I mentioned it a little while ago. We have to have our homes protected and our families protected. We have to stop voting in these people we're voting in who are destroying our country. We have a congresswoman right now yelling and screaming and lying to the people, saying that the hospital, or near the hospital, I should say, was bombed by Israelis. There's all the proof that it wasn't, and she's inciting violence, basically, and inciting these protesters. We have people like that in Congress where we have to stop allowing those people to get into office. And I know you can't stop it, but we have to, as Americans, be smarter and more informed of what's going on. It's not just a left-right thing. It's a correct thing to do, a right thing to do. But we do have to take care of our families, and we have to be self-sufficient. This is not going away anytime soon. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to expect the worst. Hope for the best, but expect the worst. The worst, in my opinion, this could develop into a regional war, into a world war. And we have everybody involved now: China, Russia, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, Syria. We have everybody. And all those countries are against us. North Korea, Hamas was firing North Korean weapons at the Israelis. They found that out. So we have to be aware of that for sure. And then be prepared. We don't know who's coming through the borders, but when and if they come near our homes, we've got to know to lock up the homes, have a safe place, and have a plan that you've rehearsed with your family, and have good food there, and have water, and have weapons, and have ammo, and have medical gear, and be ready to be self-sufficient, be ready not to have electricity, be ready to not to have running water. And even if you do all that and you don't need to do it, that's okay. But just be prepared. Things are going to get worse. Who knows what's going on right now? I mean, I think of those Israeli soldiers, and I've worked with the IDF a number of times in Israel and other places in the world. Those guys are hardcore. The country is kind of split up a little bit with Netanyahu coming in. A lot of the reservists, those 300,000 reservists, a lot of them are saying, no, we're not going to go in. We're not going to fly. We're not going to come in if we get recalled. But what happened with Israel could happen with us. All the politics went away, and now the Israeli people united, and they solidified, and now they have one objective. They have to save their country, or they're going to be the parking lot. We'll do everything we can, but now they're getting 2 fronts, maybe 3 fronts, maybe 4 fronts coming at them, and they're fighting for their existence. But maybe Americans might consider, wow, look, that happened to Israel. We got to lock down our border. We got to pay attention to what's going on with our neighbors. We got to pay attention to what's going on our streets. And it's not a peaceful world, and it's getting more and more dangerous. And we got to be aware of that and be able to take care of our families and our friends and communities.
Mike, Eric, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We're in a situation where these sort of things can easily happen here, and you choose whoever you want as your bad guy of the day, whether it be Hezbollah cells here in the U.S., which we know they're creeping around still, or cartels. We've known that for quite some time the cartels and the and Hezbollah have worked hand in glove quite a bit, especially in Venezuela and Colombia. And there's been several training facilities that have been hit in Panama, run by Hezbollah for the cartels. Are they out there? Yeah, absolutely. Can all these things happen here in the U.S.? Yes, absolutely. And that was a scenario behind my 1,500-mile get home video, was lots of cartel cells hitting cities all around the country at one time. Man, that's going to mess things up big time for transportation. So can these things happen here? Absolutely, they can happen here. Is it going to absolutely mess up the entire transportation network that we have here in the United States for goods and materials and people? Absolutely, 100%. I'm always preaching, do your absolute best to live self-sufficiently whenever you can. Grow your gardens now. Everybody's like, oh, I can't grow a garden. Sure, you can put a couple things. You live in an apartment. You've got a little 5x8 deck. Put a couple pots out there with some peppers and tomatoes on it. Get started doing that. You can grow beans. You can do all that kind of stuff. But rice and beans, dry rice and beans are still cheap, kids. And if you need mobile food, Eric is the guy to see. Absolutely. If you don't have the room or the weight capacity for several 100 pounds of rice and beans, well, maybe nutrient survival is what you need. You're going to have to make a choice. But having enough food, having the ability to collect water in case your water lines go down, more so everything else, you need to have the skills to be able to maintain that stuff. Gear is great. Gear is wonderful, but skills trump gear every day. Gear just gives you options.
Yeah, well said, Mike. I was, as Don was talking, I was thinking to myself how much all of us do dry fire training with products like the Manus Blackbeard X. You get the benefit of the training, but you also get the benefit of not spending more money on ammunition. And you can also train in your backyard, live fire, if you live in the city, those sort of things. Great point. I think, on the same topic would be training with your weapons, improving your physical fitness. And Don hit on a good one that I didn't have my notes anywhere, but practicing your first aid as well. Jason Sawyer and your buddy Joe and a few other guys, they did this 14-mile simulation of where they had to walk home. And along the way, they were throwing curveballs. So all of a sudden it was like, okay.
And they did it with the kids.
Correct. And basically what they said is, okay, these 3 people now have been shot. They're bleeding profusely. You have 60 seconds to apply the tourniquet. And a couple of these people who are skilled more than I am, hadn't worked with the tourniquets that they had and did not get them applied within 60 seconds. And so it was a good learning process that, hey, not every tourniquet's the same. We should probably practice with whatever's at hand, sort of thing.
You want premium ad-free content? Duh. Content that's not censored by big tech, of course. Well, with SD Insider, you can get behind the scenes and a whole lot more. Link in the description.
So the next point that comes to mind for me, based on everything you said, Don, is elections have consequences. Simple economics, supply and demand. When you nuke our domestic production and you rely on foreign entities, it's going to do bad things to the price of oil. I'm going to interject a few stats here, and then I'll turn it back over to y'all. Oil went over $90 a barrel today. So it's projected. Here we go with the bubble stuff. It's haunting me like you wouldn't believe. I've turned it off. It keeps coming back on. So oil prices went over $90 a barrel this morning, and it is Friday, October 20th. And if this conflict spreads in the Middle East, analysts are saying we could be looking at $150+ a barrel. I've seen some even more extreme than that. So you've already discussed the consequences of that. Last month, meat prices hit an all-time high in America. Food inflation is over 20% since Obama's third term started with Joe Biden, the puppet here. Mortgage rates, like Eric mentioned, over 8%. And we've kind of touched on ammo a little bit, but here's a couple shocking numbers. In May of this year, 5.56 was 18 cents a round. As of this morning, the average price is 46 cents a round. And 9mm was 9 cents a round. It is now 20 cents a round. Those stats are from ammopricesnow.com, gives you historical perspective and whatnot. So based on all of those things, as we're getting towards the end of wrapping this video up, I'd like each of you just to kind of go through, say, your top recommendations for our audience on what they can do now as a result of everything that's unfolding.
To go back on what you're saying, Chris, with the dry fire, yeah, the Marines do more dry fire than live fire, and they're really good at it too. What I've done for a few friends, women who live alone, or even people who aren't really into survival and protection and weapons and all that, what I'll have them do is just have a can of wasp spray nearby if they don't have weapons, but practice in your house and even go in the house with them saying, okay, if somebody does come in your house and they're not wanted, you have a wall here, have that spray near you and just come up. Okay, there's someone at the door, spray, you're going at face level. But if you do have a weapon, and a lot of people who have weapons, they don't train with them. But if you do have a weapon, walk through the person's house and say, okay, here you have cover, possibly concealment and cover and concealment. be ready to take a shot if you hear someone at that door. Identify them. If they come in the house in the middle of the night, they're a threat. But practice, go around your house and think, okay, if somebody comes in this door, where I'm going downstairs or I'm going out the back, but I have cover and concealment here. But if they could walk through that a few times, I had one friend, I walked it through with her probably 2 or 3 times a year. She was scared to death and she lived alone. And I just walked her through her house. Okay, practice. What would happen if somebody came here? And one last thing I'd like to say on what you were saying about the dry fire. Ron Avery, the second fastest shooter in the world, I wrote a book called The Modern Day Gunslinger, and he's a great shot, one of the best in the world. And he helped me with quite a bit of chapters in my book. But he told me, and he shot hundreds of rounds every day. And he told me, he said he had an operation on his arm and he wasn't able to shoot and he was really worried about it. But what he did is visualization. He used visualization, which you and I have talked about before, but he thought about every single step he had to do with tactics and with shooting. Tactics and shooting. But even if somebody sits around thinking, okay, this is what would happen, this is what can happen, this is what I'll do, you can be much better prepared when that day comes, if the day comes. And so visualize, do the dry fire, and know where your areas are, where you have cover and concealment and your exits.
Right on. Thanks, Don. Mike, Eric?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, the first piece is recognizing that 99% of Americans are walking around like nothing's happening. They are oblivious to the world around them. They're numb to things. They think life revolves around their telephone, their smartphone, and that an app can fix everything. There it is. First piece is be different, right? Head on a swivel, stay strapped, be thinking ahead, looking ahead, because other people aren't. Your family's probably not. Not everybody can be a Don or a Mike or a Chris and be ready as much as we need to be. So we have to be the protectors of not only our families, but I think of Americans in general. So that's kind of number one for me, is just head on a swivel, expect the worst, okay, and hope for the best, of course. Other piece for me is all about speaking the truth and pushing back. Like, it's not okay. It's not okay to have elected officials that are more in love with Palestine and Hamas than they are with America. It's not okay. And so I, for one, will say that's BS. I'm not buying it. And we have to turn the tide. It's like you said, Don, it's like you reinforced, Chris and Mike. We've got the ability to do it. And finally, I think people are beginning to see some of this ridiculous that's out there. And it's time to take this country back. Unfortunately, we continue to be very polarized. It may take a horrible event to unite America, like we just saw in Israel. Hamas comes across, does some really bad stuff, and all of a sudden, all the sides in Israel, the parties in Israel are friends again, okay, because they've got a common enemy. I don't want something like that. I want us to get there without a disaster. And then the last piece is just all about the preparations that you can do. And you've covered all the bases here. And Survival Dispatch is a great place to prepare you mentally, give you advice, encourage you to get out and put some of these things into practical exercise, and just do what you can. Not everybody, again, is going to be a Don Mann, ultimate kind of guru, a SEAL Team 6 guy, right? We've got normal people out there, but do what you can.
Hey, Eric, I would like to say, Eric, what you're doing, I have so much respect for what you're doing, because you help our society by offering a product that we do need. We do need a product, yours or a product like yours, but you also not only have that product that we should be keeping in our homes, but you also have such a good sense of why we need it. And you're the perfect combination for where people should go to. And I also appreciate and respect all your input. And the same with Chris and Mike. I mean, people, what you guys are doing is helping our country. And I think if we could be force multipliers and try to influence other people by things that you're saying, I think it's a big step for us all, for our country.
Appreciate that, Don. Eric, I just wanted to make a quick comment as we transition to Mike, and you were discussing these false narratives and whatnot. So, Mike, somebody from your prior group, from Crisis Application Group, and it may have been you, and I've been meaning to ask you this question, has a quote floating around out there that says, "There's no truth in the news, and there's no news in telling the truth." Was that a Mike Sterling original or one of your partners at CAG?
No, that was Joe.
Ah,
Yeah,
very well said.
I'd love to take credit for that, but absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not smart enough for that.
I beg to differ. So, Mike, your advice?
So going down the list, of course, as usual, ensure that you stock up on additional food. Just top up your preps, right? If you're smart, you're doing this kind of stuff, top up those preps now. Ammunition, if you're behind on your ammunition, don't go down and empty the shelves. Okay, there's a lot of it available still. Go ahead, reach out. If you got enough for one, if you got enough for one engagement, it's the chances of you getting into an engagement are low. Make sure you got enough for an engagement, and that's what I'm working with. I've got a couple of neighbors that I'm trying to bring up to speed right now, and this is not a.
How many rounds would that be, Mike?
So what we always used to say was 1 mag per minute in a fight. Don't count your pistol ammo. Pistol ammo is for getting you out of there. But 1 mag per minute in a fight, usually a basic load by DoD standard is 210 rounds. And Don, you and I both know that is not going to get you through a shootout at all. The goal should be 1,000 rounds per battle rifle. Okay, that should be your goal, 1,000 rounds plus. But if you can have 300 per, that should get you through where you need to go. Okay. And this is not a question of what you want. This is a question right now of what you can actually do. This is the H&R puff and stuff point. All right. You can always do a little, but you can never do enough. Get what you can get. But if you've got enough, why are you buying more? If I've got 3,000 rounds per rifle, why am I going to go out and I'm going to buy more at high cost points? There's no point to it, right? Like I said, I've got a few neighbors that I'm working with this weekend that we're just trying to bring them up. Great online sources. I don't buy ammo retail anymore. Just going ahead. There's Lucky Gunner and there's Target Sports USA and there's a whole bunch of great online dealers that you can get good buys from.
Go to ammoseek.com, select your caliber. Yep. It'll give you from the lowest price on down for online vendors where you can buy ammo.
And of course, there's my absolute favorite of the whole bunch, ammo.com, which is one of our guys. Yeah. So, but skills are going to trump that. And actually, that's actually one of the big things. God, this weekend is going to turn into a training weekend for me because I'm going to be getting together with a whole bunch of my neighbors and we're going to start actually going through and we're going to do a little bit of range time and we're going to walk around some of their houses, guns in hand, and we're going to start checking all those angles like you talked about, Don, and we're going to look at some home defense stuff. A couple of them are talking to me about, hey, how do we make communication? And of course I charged up all my radios and verified that everything was right. And I said, I'll hand you the radios when the time comes, because I'm not handing them these radios until then. They'll kill the batteries on all of them. Don, you've been there. You know what it's like working with these folks. So doing some hands-on training, do it now. Make it part of your lifestyle. Fuel, I think, is going to be a thing. Another class that we're going to be running this weekend is lessons learned on fuel storage. That's near and dear to my heart, especially after this long cross-country trip. I learned a lot about fuel that I didn't know from a scientific standpoint. Not only do you need to stabilize it, and I mean, if you got to use Stabil off the shelf, okay, use Stabil off the shelf. I prefer PRI because not only does it break down any polymerization, but it also drives out any alcohols and additional moistures out of the system. So, and it keeps your system a lot cleaner once you do burn it. But the big thing that I did learn for stored fuel was octane loss. And I completely had no idea that was a thing. Well, I had an idea that it was a thing, but it just went right over my head. So actually, also, not only do you have your fuel, not only do you have it stabilized, but also have some octane booster on hand as well. Because when I used a whole bunch of my stored fuel, I was getting 11, 12 miles per gallon when I should have been getting 17. And I couldn't understand why. And it was because of octane loss over time. That's a big thing. Good, solid sealed jerry cans. Unfortunately, the red plastic cans, the octane winds up leaching right through that plastic. It just does not do what it needs to do. So either good quality metal jerry cans, or if you can get the good Scepter heavy duty plastic military fuel cans, which are, thanks to California, they're illegal for sale here in the United States. So yeah, thanks a lot. If anybody's going to be driving to Canada and wants to bring back a truckload of those things, I'm down with you. I'll throw a couple bucks into that. Probably, I would say the absolute most important thing is get with your community and sit down with them and none of us can do this alone. Yes, the food and the fuel and the ammo and all that. Yes, these are big things. But if all of your neighbors don't have that as well, you may have a problem. That's why I'm sitting down with a bunch of my neighbors this weekend. We're going to pack food, and I'm going to take a whole bunch of pictures and some video and stuff, but we're going to run the guns. We're going to do medical refresher on everybody. Everybody's going to get a quick trauma run. My paramedics are coming out. We're gonna get blood on people this weekend. It's gonna be a good weekend. Everybody's gonna get blood on them. Everybody's gonna smell like gunpowder, and everybody's gonna pack food, and everybody's gonna sleep well come Saturday and Sunday nights.
Excellent.
Sounds like a great exercise.
I do have one thing on the Lake City issue. Everybody's screaming, "Oh, the U.S. government intentionally cut us off from this." Stop. Slow down. Loosen up your tinfoil real fast and listen to these words. What happened is, this is the beginning of the fiscal year. This is October. And Winchester, who's been running Lake City Army Ammunition Depot for probably, 5-6 years, something like that, their contract to the Department of Defense has been fallow and unfunded for like the last 2 years. They just got funding on their contract, and their contract got turned on. That's all. I looked it up. They just turned that back on. The administrations have been absolutely awful about restocking the national defense stockpile. All right. So this is literally nothing but standard government contracting. They're doing that. Now, the operating agreement between any manufacturer who runs Lake City Army Ammunition Depot or Iowa Army Ammunition Depot, whichever one you happen to do that does small arms, if they are not producing for the U.S. government, they are allowed to use the factory at no cost to them. They just have to provide all of the brass, primers, bullets, powder, all that. They have to provide all the componentry. And if they break anything, they have to repair it themselves at their own cost. But in order to offset their costs, they are allowed to manufacture ammunition and sell it on the consumer market. That's all that is.
Valid points, but I think the key thing that comes out of that is that 30% of the country's production of 5.56 ammo just became unavailable to your average consumer. So we're back to economics again, right? Reduce supply, increase prices. So like Don said, I think everything's just going to keep on trucking. Food, ammo, fuel, everything. And now's the time for people to tighten their belt and stock up.
And I guess I think the piece of it is, what if it's not? And as we talked before, what if it's not? What if this isn't just start of the new fiscal? I get it. Hey, got new money, great. Let's get it back running. But what if we do see a sustained conflict or set of conflicts and increasing conflicts? Again, I'm not saying run out and pay exorbitant prices for 5.56 ammo, but let's just hope you're right, Mike. Let's just hope you're right. We don't know what we don't know, right?
Well said. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all's time. Look forward to the next time. Everybody be safe.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jason Salyer with Survival Dispatch, and when disaster strikes, will you be ready? Power outages, natural disasters, economic collapse, and the knowledge, the skills, and equipment necessary to protect your family when it really, really matters. You can gain instant access to our team of survival experts, stockpiling food, medical necessities, communication plans, proven techniques to help you get home, shelter in place, or bug out safely. Don't leave your family's safety to chance. Visit survivaldispatch.com to get started.